Hey guys, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a massive book haul. I don't read nearly as much as I used to, but I still have been accumulating books over the past 6 months to a year, so I have not hauled any of these on my channel. Some of these were from secondhand stores, some of them are from the dollar store surprisingly, and some of them are from subscribers. So I will be letting you guys know which ones are from where. They're from all kinds of different places, so let's get into it. So the first 4 books I have, I've been meaning to talk about on my channel for a while now because these 4 books were gifted to me by a subscriber. So if you're watching this, hello and thank you so much for these books. I was not expecting them at all, and no one's ever gotten me anything off of my Amazon book wish list before, so I was super excited. I got these back in October right before I moved into the house, and I haven't really talked about them on my channel yet, so let's get into it. So the first one I have is Grown Up Pose by Sonia Lally. So this is an adult romance that follows our main character Anu, who got forced into, well, not forced into, but pressured into marrying her first ever very serious boyfriend. After kind of having like a reevaluation of her life and her marriage, she decides to get divorced, and she kind of goes on this self-discovery journey of finding her place in the world. I have another book by this author. I believe it's called The Matchmaker's List. I have not read it yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about Sonia Lally's romance books, so I am super excited to read this one, and I'm very happy to have it on my shelf. So the next one I have is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. So this one I believe is an adult fiction novel, and it follows our main character who is grieving the loss of her mother after her mother decides to take her own life. But this book is a very deep exploration into grief and culture and familial history. I have heard nothing but good things about this book on BookTube. When I first joined BookTube, I want to say in 2019, 2020, this book was all the rage. So I am very excited to get to this one. I'm kind of scared because of how big it is, so I don't know when I will be reading this one, but I am very happy to have this one. So the next book I have is Orphan Island by Laurel Snyder, and this is a middle grade fantastical book about a place called Orphan Island where orphaned children live, and it's very magical and whimsical, and once a year the eldest child on the island gets taken away on a boat to never be seen again, and a new child is brought to the island. This happens every year, and our main character's best friend at the island gets taken away on the boat never to be seen again, and she is kind of reeling from this loss. I do have a very small portion of my bookshelf that's dedicated to middle grade books, and I'm very happy to expand that collection, and this one I have also heard nothing but good things about, and I'm super excited to read it. So the next book I have, I'm actually very excited about. I've been wanting to start this series for such a long time, and I'm so happy to have the first book in my hands, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. So this one is, I believe, a young adult novel, and it is a historical fiction fantasy novel, and I believe it takes place somewhere in the, I want to say 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, somewhere in there. This follows our main character Audrey, who has lived a very sheltered life, and she has a life of privilege ahead of her, full of money and tea parties, but she doesn't really want all that, and she kind of has a secret double life where she goes and she studies forensic science with, I believe, her uncle. At some point during the novel, Audrey comes into contact with some corpses that were brutally and savagely murdered, and she gets kind of sucked into this murderer, serial killer goose chase. So this book has so many elements of books that I love. It is historical, there's a badass female main character, and she's investigating murders. Like, what more could I possibly want in a book? So I am very excited to have this one on my shelf. Hopefully I can get to it at some point this year because this is definitely higher up on my want to read list. So yeah. So like I said, those are the 4 books that were kindly gifted to me by a subscriber. Thank you so much. You did not have to do that at all. I love these so much. It was such a great surprise, and I really hope I can get to these soon. So the next group of books I have are all going to be books that I got secondhand from used bookstores or thrift stores, so let's get into that. So the first book I have is Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid, and this one is an adult fiction novel that follows our main character Alex, who is very privileged, very well off, and she has a babysitter named Amira, and one day Amira takes Alex's child to the grocery store. It's a very high-end grocery store. They go kind of late at night just for some last-minute groceries, and Amira is accused of kidnapping Alex's child because Amira is black and Alex's child is white. And this book kind of just puts a lens on classism. It talks about what it means to be a good person, and it's kind of just a social commentary. And I've heard nothing but good things about this book, and I really like the cover of it as well. It's very eye-catching in the color combination. So I'm very excited to read this one. So the next book I have is Shipbreaker by Paolo Bacigalupi. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. This one is a dystopian novel that I heard about over from Reagan at Peruse Project. It follows our main character who lives in a world where people kind of live out at sea mostly, and they strip shipwrecks for parts and sell the parts for money, and that's kind of how they get by. And in this book, our main character stumbles upon a very exquisite, very expensive looking ship that has become shipwrecked, and he has two options. One is to completely strip the ship for parts and make a lot of money, since it's a very expensive large ship, or he can rescue the lone survivor of the ship, which just happens to be a very beautiful, wealthy girl who could possibly lead him to a better future. I haven't heard much about this book on BookTube, but I do really trust Reagan's opinion over at Peruse Project because all of the books that I've read that have been recommended by her have been very good. So I'm very excited to read this one. So the next book I have is Searching for Sylvie Lee by Jean Kwok, an adult fiction novel that follows a family who is grieving the loss of their daughter, who flees to the Netherlands to visit her dying grandmother, and she never returns. But yeah, so this one kind of follows the family as they're grappling with grief. They're trying to find answers about what happened to their daughter Sylvie, and one of the sisters ends up going on this trip retracing her sister's movements to find out what really happened to her. I definitely need some more mystery books in my life, so I am very excited to have this one. I apologize if you hear the frogs outside. We've got quite a few in the pond in the front of my house, so if you hear that, I apologize, but those are just the sounds of the summer, okay? There's nothing I can do about it. So the next book I have is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. And this one is an adult historical fiction novel that takes place in Barcelona, Spain in 1945 after the events of the war. This follows our main character Daniel, who is an antique book dealer's son, and as he's grieving the loss of his mother, he finds solace in a book called The Shadow of the Wind by an author named Julian Carax. I might be butchering that, so I'm sorry. But as Daniel is enjoying this book very much, he wants to read other books by this author, only to find that someone has been systematically burning and destroying the last remaining copies of this author's work, which leads him on this very extensive journey where he unveils many truths about his city, including murder and mystery and doomed romances and things of that sort. I have heard very good things about this book. It is one that I'm kind of scared of. I don't know why. I've always been really scared of larger historical fiction books, but I want to break that stigma. So I had to pick this book up. It was in really good condition at a used bookstore, so I was like, why the heck not? So the next book I have is The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain, and this one is an adult historical fiction that takes place in 1970, and it follows our main character who is a recently widowed mother in the Vietnam War, and she finds out that her unborn baby has a heart defect and she is devastated. As it is the 1970s, there's not a lot of innovative medicine at the time that can help with a unborn baby's birth defect, but she knows someone who says there might be another way for her to have her daughter. So I believe this one has a lot of fabulism in it, and maybe some like sci-fi time travel-y kind of thing going on with it. I've heard a lot of great things about this book, which drew me to pick it up. So I'm very excited to read this one and to have it on my shelf. So the next book I have is The Austen Escape by Catherine Rie, and this is an adult fiction novel that follows our main character Mary, who is an engineer. She's very hardworking. She barely ever takes any time off, and one of her estranged childhood friends named Isabel invites Mary to go to this very fancy event that is like Regency themed. It's at a manor, and she agrees. During this trip, Isabel loses her memory and is fully convinced that she lives in Jane Austen's bath. After this takes place, Mary is kind of forced to reevaluate her relationship with Isabel and what she truly knows about her. And I don't really know much about it other than that. I just really liked the cover of this book. It kind of gave me like picnic in the spring vibe, so I thought this book would be really good to read during the springtime. So yeah. The next book I have is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, and this is an adult fiction novel that follows our main character Eleanor, who lives a very strategic life. She struggles with social skills, and I believe she's on the spectrum. I'm not 100% sure. And she kind of lives her same life every day. She watches the same movies, she eats her same frozen dinner, until one day she meets an IT guy named Raymond at the place where she works, and she kind of has to completely reevaluate her life. I'm not sure so much if this book is a romance kind of book, or it's kind of just like a book where our main character is kind of forced to break out of her shell, and it's kind of like a coming of age story. But nonetheless, I was very interested by this book, and I've heard really good things about it over here on BookTube, so I'm very happy to have this one on my shelf. So the next book I have is Finding Audrey by Sophie Kinsella, and I believe this book is very much in the same vein as Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, in that our main character, she doesn't have the best social skills. She's very reclusive. She's always wearing dark sunglasses and being very moody. And then Audrey meets Linus, who is a friend of her brother's, and she kind of starts to have feelings for him, which is really difficult for her as her social skills aren't really up to par, and she has a lot of unresolved things from her past. I have yet to pick up a Sophie Kinsella book, but growing up I was very jealous of the girls who were allowed to read the Shopaholic series, because I was not. So yeah, like I said, this book is very much in the same vein as Eleanor Oliphant, and it's actually funny because I found both these books on the same shelf on the same day at the same used bookstore. I don't know if that's a message from the universe telling me that I need to work on my social skills and kind of open up a little bit more, but yeah, nonetheless, I'm super excited to have these on my shelf, and I really am excited to read some Sophie Kinsella. The next book I have is The Ice Queen by Alice Hoffman. So this book follows our main character, who is kind of having a rough time in her life, and she mutters under her breath that she wishes that she was struck by lightning, and she does get struck by lightning. But instead of passing away, she kind of has not necessarily a new lease on life, but she definitely is living her life a little bit differently, and she's very drawn to another survivor of a lightning strike, and thus involves a very dark, very entwined romance. Yeah, so I don't really know too much about this book. I have not really heard anybody talk about it here on BookTube, but I was really drawn to another Alice Hoffman title as I read Practical Magic for the first time last year, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought I would pick up another one of her books, and I really just love her covers. They're very sweet, very delicate, very haunting in ways as well, and I'm just really excited to have this one. This next book is a book that I have hauled and unhauled a number of times that I have lost track of, and that is because I cannot decide whether or not I want to read this book. And that book is none other than the almighty tome / weapon of a book, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This one is a historical fiction novel that I believe takes place either during the war or after the war, sometime in there, and it, I believe, takes place in Paris, guessing by the Eiffel Tower on the cover. And this story follows two sisters who are leading very different lives, and I believe one does something to hurt the other, and then there's like a lot of family drama and like war drama and stuff like that. Can you tell I don't know very much about the book? So the reason I keep hauling and unhauling this book is because everyone and their mother who has actually finished this book through to the end has said it is one of the best books that they've ever read, that it made them cry. I gave my last copy to my grandma because I wasn't going to read it, and she loves historical books, and she was floored by it, absolutely loved it. So I feel like now it is my duty, since my grandma loved it, that I have to read it as well. When that day will be, I don't know, because like I said, this book is humongous. It is literally the size of my head, and I'm really afraid of big books. I'm not afraid to admit that. Don't judge me. So yeah, I happened to find a very pristine copy of The Nightingale at the thrift store. It is basically intact. It looks brand new, so Let's see if I ever get around to this one or if I end up unhauling it again. So the next book I have is a very interesting one. It's one that has caught my eye every time that I've seen it, and I was really happy to find this at my local used bookstore, and that is Lifestyles of Gods and Monsters by Emily Roberson. And this one is a young adult fantasy sci-fi book, if that makes any sense. So this is very heavily Greek mythology inspired, and it follows our main character named Ariadne, and she goes on a game show where 14 teenagers are put into a maze and they have to kill a monster and survive. So this one sounds super interesting. I love Greek mythology. I can't say I love game shows, and I can certainly not say I love reality TV, but I really love Greek mythology, and I just cannot resist when it has elements in books, especially in such a unique way like this one. And also like the cover, it just really like drew me in and I had to pick it up. So I'm super excited to read this one. So that was the last book in the group of books that I got secondhand or got from the thrift store. These next group of books are ones that I have bought new. The first one I have, you'll be able to tell very easily where I got it because there's an obnoxious sticker on the front, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is a book that I have heard about all over Book Instagram, all over Book Talk, all over BookTube, and I finally decided to pick up a copy in, I believe, January of this year. All I know about this book is that it's very relatable to people in their 20s, and it's kind of like a coming of age and like kind of a romance. I don't really know like too much about it because I don't want to like have it spoiled because I've heard so many good things about it, but it does say Normal People is a story of mutual fascination, friendship, and love. It takes us from that first conversation to the years beyond in the company of two people who try to stay apart but find they can't. So yeah, I'm super excited to read this one. I've heard really good things about it, and I also really like the colors on this cover. So yeah. So the next book I have is From Trigger to Tranquil by Susan Campbell, PhD, and this is a non-fiction book. I was very drawn to it when I went to Books A Million last, and I, as an adult, have kind of realized that growing up I wasn't really taught how to deal with conflict very well, and how sometimes like I can get overly like upset about things or overly, I guess, triggered about things, and I really want to try to mend that part of myself. So yeah, I was very interested to pick this one up. It's definitely higher up there on my want to read list because I've been reading so many self-help books, because I feel like I've been working on myself a lot this past like year or so, and I've been reading a lot of books about dealing with emotional trauma and things like that. So yeah, I haven't heard anybody on BookTube talk about this one necessarily, but I am very excited to read this one just for like my own like personal like inner child needs. So yeah. So the next book I have is kind of in the same vein of like a book that is a self-help book to help through emotional trauma, and that is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der something PhD, because there's an obnoxious Target sticker on the front. So this book is very interesting. I have heard so many good things about it on Book Talk, BookTube, Bookstagram, you name it. This is a very well-loved self-help book, and this one discusses how your body can not only mentally store trauma but physically store trauma as well, and how your behaviors and your actions and even your mannerisms can all be affected by your trauma. I am kind of scared of this book just because I've heard everyone who has read it say that it's something that you 100% have to be in the right mindset for, and so I just feel like the universe will tell me when it's my time to read this book, but I just know that I will cry and I will unearth some truths about my wounded inner child. So if you are very much on the self-help book train like I am, then this one is the one to pick up. So the next book I have is the one that I got the most recently. I just got this one off of Amazon, and that is The Righteous by Renee Ahdieh. This is the third book in the Beautiful Quartet, which is a young adult fantasy series that follows our main character Celine, who migrates to the French Quarter of New Orleans after a tragic incident, and she gets involved with this very sneaky group called the Coeur de Lions, or the Court of Lions, and she kind of gets wrapped up in this group. If you love moody vampirism and you love historical fiction, then definitely pick up this series. I have loved both books that I've read in the series so far. This is the next one that I need to read, and it's very atmospheric. You really feel like you're out on the French corner, twirling your skirts, getting a beignet, like you really feel the vibes. So if you're in the mood for some vampirism and a little bit of spookiness, I know it's summer, it's not quite fall spooky time yet, but I'm still gonna read this book, then this one's for you. Okay, only 3 more books, I promise. I know I have been talking forever. These next 3 books are a huge surprise for me because I actually got all 3 of these books at the Dollar Tree, and sometimes I just happen to find really good books there that are on my TBR that are brand new hardcover books. So I'm very excited to get into these. So the first book I have is Attack of the 50-Foot Wallflower by Christian McKay Hediker. And what drew me to this book initially was the cover because it looks like an old comic. This is like a young adult sci-fi fantasy book, and it follows our main character who is constantly on the run. She's moving from motel to motel with her family because they are like a lightning rod for monsters that they have to end up exterminating. However, the only reason that the main character and her mom are alive is because her dad is actually an invisible titan that can sense when monsters are near. I'm gonna be honest, this book sounds kind of ridiculous, but I was really drawn to the cover. I've heard literally nothing about this book on BookTube. I think I heard one person say that they didn't like it, but I'm still gonna take a chance on it because I am a sucker for a beautiful cover, and also I love fantasy and sci-fi, so this one I think is gonna be fun for sure. So the next book I have is These Ghosts Are Family by Maisie Card, and this is an adult fiction novel, and I don't know too much about this one. I just know that it follows our main character who reconnects with her seemingly deceased father, and it kind of follows this large Jamaican family and these generational secrets that no one has ever talked about before, and it's kind of just about family. I haven't heard anyone on BookTube talk about this book, but I did see it on a new releases article back in 2020, and I was really drawn to the cover, and I think family stories can be really powerful, so I went ahead and picked this one up. So yeah. The next and last book that I have is Belle Revolt by Lindsay Miller. This is a young adult fantasy novel. I honestly don't know too much about it, but I know that for a while this was really talked about and read and reviewed here on BookTube because a lot of people got sent arcs of it. So I can't really say too much about it because I just don't know too much about it. All I know is that it's YA fantasy. 2 girls end up swapping lives and hysteria ensues, and it has a really pretty cover. If you take away one thing from this video, it is that I am a sucker for a beautiful cover. But yeah, nonetheless, I am super excited to read this book, even if I don't really know what it's about, and I'm okay with that. So those are all the books that I've hauled over the course of like the last like 6-ish months. I have not filmed a book haul in such a long time, and it feels good to be doing another one. I really like books, and I haven't been reading as frequently, but I definitely have still been buying books, as you can tell by this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like and subscribe down below, and leave a comment, and let me know if you guys have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I would love to know. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye! Hi.
It's time to eat.
Oh, food's here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about my last book.
Oh, is it recording right now?
Yes.